Governance. Do you hear this term a lot and not sure what it means? Of course, we all know the meaning of the word, but what does it mean for your information security program? Today I'm going to discuss how the industry defines it, but more importantly, what it means to you and your business. Welcome back, everyone. The term Enterprise Information Security Governance sounds very official, and it gets thrown around a lot, expecting that everyone knows what it means. And generally speaking, most organizations know what it means and how it applies broadly. But I'll bet many organizations, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, struggle with this. How does it apply to my org? What steps can I take to improve governance? Today I'm going to break it down into 3 key areas, which you can target to improve or even develop an information security governance program from scratch. I've spent most of my career in financial services, so if you're a small to medium-sized community bank, you'll be my target audience. But all of these concepts and best practices can be applied to just about any industry, particularly those that are heavily regulated. A sound, robust governance program all starts with the culture of the organization. If information security isn't part of the culture of the organization, then your governance program, or likely lack thereof, is doomed to fail. Business has become so dependent on information. The processes and technology that handle and transmit information are vital to your business, and therefore protecting it must be a priority for the organization. The individuals at senior and mid-level management positions must have a sense of the importance of information security, and that's usually provided by both the culture and the information security strategy, and is often quarterbacked by the information security manager, which in many cases, particularly for small organizations, is a hat that someone wears instead of a full-time position. But whether it's a dedicated or part-time position, the information security manager should lead the charge, and they can't be successful without the support of the entire organization. And that means building relationships and fostering teamwork between departments is imperative to influencing a positive attitude towards security culture. Because let's face it, most people view security as a hindrance, and it can be if done improperly or is overly restrictive, which is why security must be aligned with the objectives of the business and everyone, including security, working towards the objectives of the business. Okay, so we talked a bit about the organizational culture and the importance of information security. Let's expand on that a bit and discuss the org structure. How is your organization, organized? It's important for the information security manager to understand how the organization is structured so they can coordinate with various stakeholders to execute the information security strategy. Strategy is another term that gets thrown around a lot, I think, without much consideration. And again, of course we all know the meaning of the word, but can you honestly say that you know what the information security strategy is for your organization? Or if you even have one? I'll talk more about strategy in another video, but the point is to understand how the organization is structured to foster inclusivity and accountability. I can't tell you how many times decisions about IT or security get made in a vacuum, and then the organization is mandated to implement changes to process. And had those departments been made aware of the changes proactively, not only would they be more willing to change process in support of the strategy, but probably could have aided in the development of said changes. And this inclusivity is the key to accountability, which must be prevalent throughout the organization. I'll give you an example. Most recently, everyone has been enthralled with generative AI, also known as ChatGPT. And although there isn't a lot of regulatory guidance on this just yet, many organizations are beginning to restrict how this is used, or if it can be used at all. I won't go into all the nuance and risk here, but it does pose risk to any organization, particularly those with information security regulatory requirements. And so, organizations have begun disallowing the use without any warning or context. Many businesses these days grow and adapt at a rapid pace, so individual departments may have already integrated generative AI into their business processes, and now all of a sudden they can't use it. In my experience, telling someone they can't do something without giving them a reason almost always results in frustration and even resentment. And the last thing you want is one of your key business areas resenting information security, because inevitably they will find a way to circumvent it. And that's of course something you don't want in your organization. So, the correct approach is to first understand, Does my organization even use generative AI? If so, what for? Does it pose a risk to my organization from an information security perspective? And if you've answered yes to any of these questions, then next ask yourself, okay, is this now critical from a business perspective? Who needs to access it? And what kind of information is exposed? I'll talk more about information classifications in a future video, but understanding what kind of information is exposed or at risk is key to defining security controls. And so, you may still restrict the use of generative AI at your organization, with maybe some limited access to certain teams or individuals, providing guidance on what information can be used. Okay, I could go on and on with case and points about organizations making unilateral decisions without getting input or even informing the rest of the business. But the point is to understand how your organization is structured. Who are the stakeholders? Use that to drive accountability. So, we'll move on to the last area, which is regulatory, contractual, and/or legal requirements. If you're in a heavily regulated industry, then you probably know your regulatory requirements all too well. For financial services, this is GLBA, or for healthcare, it's HIPAA. These regulations are in place to protect the privacy of individuals, or namely, you, your private health information, or your non-public personal information, such as date of birth, social security number. Many industries and organizations not only have regulatory requirements, but you may also have legal or contractual requirements. Although federal regulations provide guidance on what information to protect, you may also be subject to local and state requirements. A good example of this is record retention. Everyone has probably heard of the infamous 7-year retention period for financial transactions, driven largely by rumors about the Treasury Department and the IRS because you could be subject to tax audits for up to 7 years, which isn't necessarily true, but financial transactions are commonly retained for the same period. But what about other information? How about emails? How about those cluttered network drives containing swaths of legacy information that likely predate your employment at that organization? How long should you keep those? Depending on your state and local regulatory requirements, you may have different retention schedules to maintain. I'll go more into some strategies you can employ to not only help you align with your specific requirements, but also likely save you some money as well. Historically, it's always been easier to pay for storage and keep everything than it is to only keep what you need and employ retention strategies. It's likely you're paying far too much money for those digital dust bunnies that you'll probably never access again. But more relevant is that you're likely overprotecting a lot of information, which can increase the expense. In a nutshell, improving or establishing an information security governance program really should be focused on the culture. A top-down approach is paramount, because without senior management, the rest of the organization likely won't take it seriously. So, in addition to the information security manager, you should also have C-level sponsorship to help foster a culture that takes information security seriously. Then you've got your org structure, which is just another way to say understanding key stakeholders, assigning roles and responsibilities to drive accountability. Although the information security manager is the quarterback, they need the whole team engaged. Everyone has a role to play in information security. And finally, what legal or regulatory requirements do you have? This will help you define some of the guardrails around what information you're protecting and why. This is the first video in a series on information security program governance, so stay tuned for more as we broach some of the more nuanced areas of information security, such as information security strategy, risk assessments, and more. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to push all those buttons for more fun and educational videos. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you next time.